Hi, this is Michelle with Angelic Encounters, and I wanted to bring a story that I find very comforting that shows that we are not always alone. This is a rough time for a lot of us in the world, and sometimes things can feel so hopeless. But there are many stories out there of divine intervention at the time when we most need it. The story I have for you today is about Katrina Bryan. She has a very vivid memory from when she was about 4 or 5 years old. She was supposed to ride with her dad to go pick her mom up from the hospital where her mom works. And Katrina did not want to go. It was a beautiful day outside. The birds were singing, the weather wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold. She had big plans where she wanted to play with her best friend and her neighbor. This was a time whenever we were pretty safe for the most part. Kids could go play on their street and could hang out with their neighbors, and parents really didn't have a lot to worry about. But Katrina's dad really wanted her to go, so he tried to convince her, but she kept begging and saying, "Pretty please, Dad, pretty please." And so finally he relented. He knew that his 12-year-old son was there and he was very responsible. And besides that, it wasn't very far away. His wife only worked like maybe 20 minutes away. So he gave in and he said that she could stay. She immediately just took off out the door, went in the backyard, grabbed her bike, and she took off. So as she was getting around and leaving her house, she heard a weird noise, and she looked back behind her and she saw her dad's car coming straight towards her, backing up. She was paralyzed with fear, and even being little at that time, she knew that she was too small for him to see. And everything seemed to go in slow motion to her. She remembers just slowly, like the car was backing up, her mind was just putting everything on ultra slow speed. She remembers the car putting pressure on her. She remembers starting to fall. And then at that moment, she saw a light coming down from the sky towards her. And then she remembers being off the bike, the car backing onto her, and she felt two hands cradle her head as her body was going to the ground and being run over. She remembers it vividly. She says there was a lot of things from that period of her life that has faded with time, but that memory never faded. She remembers looking and seeing the neighbors and her brother and everybody running towards her, standing around her, tears pouring down their faces. She could see the look of fear in their eyes. And she remembers wanting to tell them, I'm okay. And Angel held my head, but she couldn't talk. She was just injured too badly. She was injured so badly they had to get life flight to fly her to the children's hospital. And she remembers when she got to the hospital, her mom running in, tears streaming down her face, and just such an immense look of sadness and fear. And she wanted to tell her mommy, it's okay. She ended up with terrible injuries. On her leg, she had a 10-inch gash. The car almost took her leg off. She ended up getting 100 stitches. Her poor little body was just covered in abrasions, contusions, bruises The doctors told her mother and her father that they could not understand why this little girl did not have a grievous head injury, and how from her neck or chest down, actually, just injury after injury, but her head was perfect. No injuries, no brain damage. It truly was a miracle, and it confounded the doctors. The knee injury, they had to do surgery that took several hours because it was such a serious injury, but this little girl did recover. And she remembers through the years that sometimes she would start to doubt God and she would start to lose faith, but she will always tell herself what happened and remind herself how an angel cradled her head, and she survived. Amazing story. We are not alone. You are loved, and you are not alone. Peace to you and many blessings. Thank you. If this story brought you comfort, please share it with someone who needs to hear the same thing and needs to be comforted. Like, subscribe, and share so we can bring more stories like this to a world that needs a little light. Thank you.